In the second part of the lesson, we can see the letter written by Jim Macpherson to his wife, Mrs. Jim Macpherson, whom he calls Connie lovingly. So here the letter. Dearest Connie, I write you in a much happier frame of mind because something wonderful has just happened that I must tell you about at once. We were all standing to in our trenches yesterday morning, Christmas morning. It was crisp and quiet all about, as beautiful a morning as I have ever seen, as cold and frosty as a Christmas morning should be. So, in the first paragraph itself, Jim is mentioning about a Christmas morning to his beloved wife, Connie. He's saying that he is just waiting to share the beautiful memory with you. And he says that we were all standing in our trenches. So trenches is a new word. Trenches means long deep ditches in the ground where the soldiers hide from the enemy. So we have to assume that only the soldiers are supposed to be in the trenches. So indirectly it shows that Jim Macpherson is a soldier. They were standing in the trenches yesterday morning. So in the previous part we had seen it was written, the date was written like December 26, 1914. So it is just the next day after the Christmas. So he is saying that during Christmas morning, we were all standing in our trenches and it was as beautiful as any Christmas morning. It was very crisp and quiet and it was cold and frosty like any other Christmas day. I should like to be able to tell you that we began it, but the truth I'm ashamed to say is that Fritz began it. First, someone saw a white flag waving from the trenches opposite. Then they were calling out to us from across no man's land, Happy Christmas, Tommy, Happy Christmas. When we had got over the surprise, some of us shouted back, Same to you, Fritz, same to you. I thought that would be that. We all did. But then suddenly one of them was up there in his grey greatcoat and waving a white flag. Don't shoot, lads, someone shouted, and no one did. Then there was another Fritz upon the parapet, another. Keep your heads down, I told the men. It's a trick, but it wasn't. In the second paragraph, Jim is mentioning about the incidents that happened in that Christmas morning. So before that, you have to understand that Fritz and Tommy, they are the soldiers. Fritz are the German soldiers and Tommys are the English soldiers. They are the British soldiers. So Jim Macpherson is a British soldier. He is an English soldier. He belongs to England. I should like to be able to tell you that we began it. We in the sense means the British soldiers. But the truth I am ashamed to say is that Fritz began it. So the Fritz means the German soldiers. So actually the good incident that happened in Christmas morning was started by the German soldiers. First, someone saw a white flag waving from the trenches opposite. So the opposite trenches of the Britishers were belonging to the German soldiers. So first someone from the British soldier had seen a German soldier waving a white flag. White flag is denoting peace. Okay. Then they were calling out to us from across no man's land. No man's land means it is just like the line of control, the area between the two borders, between the German border, and between the border of England. That area is called no man's land. That area is not being protected by anyone. Both are having equal right, but no one is supposed to be on that no man's land. Then they were calling out to us from across no man's land. They in the sense means the German soldiers were calling out from across no man's land. Happy Christmas, Tommy, Happy Christmas. So they are wishing to English soldiers Happy Christmas. And when we had got over the surprise, some of us shouted back, Same to you, Fritz, same to you. So initially they were surprised. The English soldiers, the British soldiers were a bit surprised and all of a sudden, someone of them shouted back, saying, "Do you Fritz?" Fritz means the German soldiers. I thought that would be that. We all did. But then suddenly one of them was up there in his grey greatcoat and waving a white flag. So they thought that it will be only this much. They will be wishing, and they have wished, and we also wish them back. But it was not so. What has happened? All of a sudden, he had seen someone wearing a grey color greatcoat. Greatcoat means overcoat, the jacket, and waving a white flag. "Don't shoot, lad," someone shouted. So, here in his English, in the British soldiers, someone of them has shouted that don't shoot that person, don't shoot that German soldier. And no one did. The English soldiers hasn't shooted him. Then there was another Fritz upon the parapet and another. "Keep your heads down," I told them, and it's a trick, but it wasn't. So, next incident is that they had seen a German soldier standing on the parapet, and the writer Jim Macpherson, he got scared and he just insisted his fellow soldiers to keep their heads down and told that it's a trick, but actually it wasn't a trick. They were not there to shoot them. One of the Germans was waving a bottle above his head. "It is Christmas Day, Tommy. We have snaps." You have to read it, snaps. "We have sausage. We meet you." Yes, by this time there were dozens of them walking towards us across no man's land, and not a rifle between them. So next we can see one of the German soldier was waving a bottle above his head, and he's just wishing them Happy Christmas, Tommy. Tommy means the English soldiers, the British soldiers, and we have snaps. Snap means a German drink made from grain. It is just like a wine. And they are saying that they have snaps and they have sausages as well. And can we meet? So immediately someone from the British soldier just replied, "Yes, why not?" Then by the time we can see dozens of German soldiers walking across a no man's land, and they were not even carrying a rifle with them. Little Private Morris was the first up. "Come on, boys, what are we waiting for?" So here we can see a character, Little Private Morris, and he is a soldier in a British army. And he just told the fellow soldiers that, "Come on, boys, what are we waiting for? We can also join with them." And then there was no stopping them. I was the officer. I should have stopped them then and there, I suppose. But the truth is that it never even occurred to me I should. All along their line and ours, I could see men walking slowly one another, grey coats, khaki coats meeting in the middle, and I was one of them. I was part of this. In the middle of the war, we were making peace. So when they got a comment that why we are waiting, we should also enjoy, then we can see the mingling of both grey greatcoats and khaki greycoats. Grey belongs to the German soldiers and khaki belongs to the British soldiers. They were meeting in the middle of no man's land. And the writer, Jim Macpherson, the writer of the letter, Jim Macpherson, was an officer, and he is having the authority to stop his fellow soldiers. But he hasn't done it, and in the middle of the war, they were making peace. I cannot imagine, dearest Connie, my feelings as I looked into the eyes of the Fritz officer who approached me, hand outstretched. "Hans Wolf," he said, gripping my hand warmly and holding it. I am from Dusseldorf. I play the cello in the orchestra. Happy Christmas." So in this paragraph, Jim is mentioning about his meeting with a Fritz officer named Hans Wolf. So he was totally happy to have a meeting with Hans Wolf. So the Fritz officer just approached him, and he had given his hand for a handshake. Then he said his name. He just introduced himself. "I'm Hans Wolf, and he is from Dusseldorf." Dusseldorf is a place in Germany, and he used to play the cello in orchestra, and he wished Jim Macpherson Merry Christmas. So you have to know the fact that during the time of World War, all the healthy men, all the adults were supposed, they were insisted to be a soldier. They were forced to give some service in army. That is why a cello player in orchestra turned to be a soldier. Okay, so Hans Wolf is a German soldier, and he is from the place called Dusseldorf, and he is basically a cello player in an orchestra. Captain Jim McPherson, I replied, and a happy Christmas to you too. I am a school teacher from Dorset in the west of England. So here we can see what is the actual job of Jim McPherson. Now he is a captain in the army, but before that he was a school teacher, and he belongs to Dorset, that is in the west side of England. Ah, Dorset, he smiled. I know this place. I know it very well. We shared my rum ration and his excellent sausage, and we talked, Connie. How we talked? He spoke almost perfect English, but it turned out that he had never set foot in Dorset, never even been to England. He had learned all he knew of England from school and from reading books in English. Here we can see more details regarding Hans Wolf, the German soldier. When Jim McPherson told him that he belongs to Dorset, he was so happy to hear that he belongs to Dorset, because Hans Wolf knows something about Dorset. And they were just sharing the rum ration, their sausage, and there is a special fact regarding Hans Wolf, that he was able to talk in perfect English. Even though he is a German, he was able to talk in fluent English, and he never came to Dorset or even to England, but he knows well about England and Dorset, because he learned all these things from school. He learned English from school, and through reading books, he became so fluent in English. His favorite writer was Thomas Hardy. His favorite book, Far from the Madding Crowd. So Hans Wolf loved the writer Thomas Hardy, and he loved his book, Far from the Madding Crowd. So out there in no man's land, we talked of Bathsheba and Gabrielok and Sergeant Roy and Dorset. These are the characters in a story. Not in this story, the characters in Thomas Hardy's work. And he had a wife and a son born just 6 months ago. So Hans Wolf is married. He is having a wife and a son that is just 6 months old. As I looked about me, there were huddles of khaki and grey everywhere, all over no man's land, smoking, laughing, talking, drinking, eating. Hans Wolf and I shared what was left of your wonderful Christmas cake, Connie. He thought the marzipan was the best he had ever tasted. I agreed. We agreed about everything, and he was my enemy. There never was a Christmas party like it, Connie. So here we can see, when he was just looking here and there, you can see all the men were enjoying. They were smoking, laughing, talking, drinking, and eating in no man's land. And Hans Wolf and Jim McPherson shared the wonderful Christmas cake Connie has given to Jim McPherson. And the marzipan means a sweet covering on the cake made from sugar, eggs, and almonds. So this cake was covered with marzipan, and Hans Wolf told or gave a compliment that this was the best marzipan he had ever tasted in his life. Then someone, I don't know who, brought out a football. Great cords were dumped in piles to make goalposts, and the next thing we knew, it was Tommy against Fritz out in the middle of no man's land. So after having a good party, now they're going to play a match. And they are going to play a football match. Someone of them had bought a football, and they're going to play a match. And in order to create a goalpost, they just dumped their overcoats and they just made the goalpost. And now we can see Tommy and Fritz were having a match in the middle of no man's land. Hans Wolf and I looked on and cheered, clapping your hands and stamping your feet to keep out the cold as much as anything. So this is winter season, and in order to make their body warm, they are just clapping their hands and just stamping their feet on the ground. There was a moment when I noticed our breaths mingling in the air between us. He saw it too and smiled. Jim McPherson? He said after a while, I think this is how we should resolve the war. A football match. No one dies in a football match. No children are orphaned. No wife become widows. So this is the essence of this lesson. Now, Hans Wolf made a statement to Jim McPherson that he said that this is the way we should resolve any war. We should solve any problem through playing a match. What is the need for making a war? What is the need to kill the people? If we are playing a football match, no one dies in a match, and no children are turning orphan, and no wives become widows. Prefer cricket, I told him. Then we Tommies could be sure of winning, probably. We laughed at that and together we watched the game. So you might be knowing about the history of cricket. Cricket has originated in England. So now, just for a fun, Jim McPherson made the statement that if they were playing cricket match, obviously who will be winning? Tommies or the British soldiers will be winning. And together they were watching the football match. Sad to say, Connie, Fritz won 2 goals to 1, but as Hansel generously said, our goal was wider than theirs, so it wasn't quite fair. So who won the match? Fritz won the match, that is 2 goals to 1. And 1 goal was wider, and so it wasn't quite fair. The time came, and all too soon, when the game was finished, the snaps and the rum and the sausage had long since run out, and we knew it was all over. I wished Hans well and told him I hoped he would see his family again soon, that the fighting would end and we could all go home. So this is a time for parting. They are just bidding bye. And he just wished, Jim McPherson wished Hansel that soon every problem will be solved and he will be going back to his home. He will be seeing his wife and his newborn baby, and that the fighting would come to an end and all the soldiers will go back to their home. I think that is what every soldier wants on both sides, Hans Wolf said. Take care, Jim McPherson. I shall never forget this moment, nor you. He saluted and walked away from me slowly, unwillingly. I felt. He turned to wave just once and then became one of the hundreds of grey-coated men drifting back towards their trenches. So after hearing the well-wishing of Jim McPherson, Hans Wolf too told him the same. Take care of yourself, and I shall never forget this moment, and this is the best moment in my life. And he just walked away from him slowly, unwillingly, hesitantly. And later on, he was just one among the soldiers who were just wearing the grey coat, and they were just drifting back towards their trenches. That night, back in our dugouts, we heard them singing a carol, and singing it quite beautifully. It was still a natural silent night. Our boys gave them a rousing chorus of white shepherds washed. We exchanged carols for a while, and then we all fell silent. We had had a time of peace and goodwill, a time I will treasure as long as I live. And this paragraph shows how nicely they just enjoyed that night. They were singing carol songs. First, it was started by the German soldiers. They had sang the song Stille Nacht. It means silent night. Stille Nacht is a German word. It means silent night. And for them, as a returning gift, the English soldiers, the British soldiers sang this song while shepherds watched. They exchanged the songs for a while, and they all fell silent. Means they all fell asleep. And it is the best time of peace and goodwill, and it is the best treasurable moment in Jim McPherson's life. In the last paragraph, we can see the hope of Jim McPherson. Dearest Connie, by Christmas time next year, this war will be nothing but a distant and terrible memory. I know from all that happened today how much both armies long for peace. We shall be together again soon. I'm sure of it. You are loving, Jim. So here is the ending of this letter. He is just wishing the best, that by the next Christmas everything will be solved, and this war will be just a distant and a terrible memory, because today I came to know how much the people are longing for peace, and he is just hoping that soon they will be together, and he is damn sure about it. Yours loving, Jim. So I hope you understood the letter properly.